Straight all day.
You are now tuned into the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves any one of us, including yourself, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. And then we put all this together into a series of frameworks, approaches, insights, strategies, and techniques, all underneath the umbrella of one unifying philosophy that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day, and welcome to the show. And today we are getting into part 3 of 3, as promised, on brand building myths. Now, before we get into this, let me remind you all to have a daily motivation text message that I send out free of charge every day to everyone who's in my text community. This message is guaranteed to keep you focused, sharp, and on point. And since you want to receive it, just text me at my number. Let me know you want it. My number is 305-384-6894. It is listed down below in the show notes. Also, at workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can go there and look right now. You have options to take your next steps with me. You can work with me directly in my coaching programs. You can get access to all of our 20 plus courses in the university courses section. You can also subscribe to get the Bulletproof Bulletin and the Masterclass Black Book, which gets sent out physically to your doorstep every single month to everyone who's a member of the university. All your options are available there, again, at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Now, since I've already given you parts 1 and 2 on this series, you already got your introduction. I don't need to introduce this topic. We're just going to go right into it, picking up where we left off at point number 7. Topic again is brand building myths that we got to make sure that everybody is clear on. Number 7 is increased vanity metrics equal brand progress. So this one is both a yes and a no at the same time. Now, it's a yes in the sense that if all you care about is increasing your vanity metrics and expanding your reach online, this is a good thing, then yes, more vanity metrics means your brand is making progress. What's a vanity metric, by the way? To remind you all, vanity metrics are all the numbers that have nothing to do with you actually making money. So a like, a comment, a subscriber, a follower, a listener, a viewer, a downloader, none of those things, engagement, any form of engagement, none of those make you money. Now, they might feel good. They do feel good. They will give you a rush of dopamine. They will boost your ego. That's the reason why they're so popular. And the reason why so many people chase these metrics is because of those things. But none of these actually make you money. Okay, so if you are focused on boosting your ego through these metrics, yes, do as much of this as you want, and that is it, progressing your brand. But remember that having a brand and having a business are two different things. We talked about this in episode number, let me find where that episode is. That is episode number, I've talked about branding so much. I'm just looking through these episodes to try to find this topic. It is episode number, and I've also did an episode on this in, excuse me, not an episode, but in the Bulletproof Bulletin. I'm not finding that episode. Here it is, episode number 1391. Build a business before you build a brand. But also the Bulletproof Bulletin, one of the past episodes of the Bulletin. That's a physical magazine that's sent out every month to every member of my university. I did a whole episode that the title was Business Over Brand. Now, the reason why this point, increased vanity metrics equaling brand progress, can be a no is if your purpose in building your brand is to generate business, meaning you want to make money. Then the vanity metrics mean very little towards the bottom line outputs of your business, meaning bottom line outputs, meaning the money that you make. Okay. Usually, and a lot of people don't understand this, and I'm going to explain it to you. Usually, the metrics of your brand are a trailing indicator of the performance of your business. They are not a leading indicator, but a trailing indicator. What that means is a trailing indicator is the after effects of something happening. So you having a bunch of followers on the internet is usually the after effect of you doing solid and consistent business. It is not an indication that you're about to do a bunch of business. Having a bunch of followers on the internet is not an indication that you're about to make a bunch of money. A lot of people think that this is the case. And again, the social media companies, they do a good job of making you believe this, because the more you believe it, the more time you're going to spend on those apps, giving your time, attention, energy, and focus to their apps. And again, the more of your time you give to the apps, the more money they make. All right, so these are very, I've said this many times here on the show, these are very, very, very smart individuals. And they are basically leveraging your lack of understanding of how business works to get you to do exactly what they want you to do, which is making them more and more money. This is their business model. And they have a very, very smart, strategic business model that they use. They're using it against people who don't really understand business. Many people who are under 25 kids who just don't understand business, period, on any level, let alone the internet business, and they're spending all their time on the internet. All right, any of you who has kids, who has a smartphone, oh, they're making a ton of money off of your kids, hand and fist. And your kids don't have to spend any money for them to make money off them. They're just using your time. They're leveraging your kids' time, and they're making money off of it. This is their business model. And they know exactly what they're doing. Now, do you know what you're doing? That's the question. So, as a business owner, you are the shareholder of your business. You are a shareholder in your business. If you are a publicly traded company, or you have other people who have, who have, they have invested into your business, they own some equity in your business, your number one priority is to generate returns on investment for the stakeholders of your business, the shareholders of your business. If it's just you, then your number one priority is increasing the returns for yourself. And that has nothing to do with vanity metrics. The vanity metrics, again, are usually a trailing indicator, not a leading indicator of what your business is doing well. In other words, if you do great business, you will end up with getting more followers on social media. Just because you have followers on social media does not mean you're about to make a bunch of money. Again, a lot of people think this is not true. And any of you who has built up a bunch of followers on social media, yet you're not making that much money, okay, all right, you figured this out the hard way. And social media didn't tell you the truth, because they're not incentivized to tell you the truth. They're incentivized to make money for themselves. They know their business model, which is to make money for themselves, which means getting you to give your time to them. All right, that's their business. And they don't have to tell you the truth about what's going on in business, because if they did, it would hurt their bottom line. And everyone is driven by self-interest. Even these applications who seem to be doing such benevolent things for you, they're not. All right, they know what they're doing. All right, so your business is not driven by likes, comments, followers, downloaders, subscribers, views, etc. Your business is driven by making money, folks. Creating exchanges. I just talked about this not too long ago when I talked about the ICE method for your business. Episode 2437, ICE method for wealth creation. Identify a need, communicate that you can solve people's problems, and create the exchange. The exchange is where you make your money. Notice there's nothing there that says anything about likes and retweets and comments and downloaders and views and whatever other metrics social media has you hoodwinked into thinking aren't important. Again, social media has many business owners, or would-be business owners, confused because you are chasing metrics instead of going after, you're chasing vanity metrics instead of business metrics. There's a conflict there. You have to understand that. If you don't understand it, you are the one that's getting used. Again, you sit at a poker table for long enough and you don't know who the sucker is. The sucker is you. Point number 8. Again, the topic, we're on point 3 of 3, part 3 of 3. Brand building myths. Next, we're going to go into business building myths, but today's the last of this 3-part series on brand building myths. This is myth number 8. You must create a ton of content in order to get yourself established as a brand. To create a brand and get established, you got to create a whole bunch of content, like Dre does, put out a show every day. This is not necessarily true. Although there are many people who do create a lot of content, people such as myself, you don't need to create a lot of content in order to be established with your specific audience. Again, this is all based on who your audience is. Where is your audience looking for people like yourself? And what do they need in order to have the information that they need to have in order to make a decision about what they do next? These are things you need to know. This is called market research. You need to know who your audience is. If you don't know who your audience is, then you can't make good strategic decisions about what to do, when to do it, where to do it, why to do it, or how to do it. This is why strategy matters so much. This is why, again, in Work on Your Game University, this is one of the main things that I help people with is strategy. And when it comes to strategy, some people hear strategy as it seems like this big word that confuses a lot of people. It's simply about asking yourself the right questions. And if you don't know what questions to ask, then you need help with strategy. All right, this is what I help people with. All right, what questions have you never asked yourself that need to be asked? And when you ask them, all of a sudden you get breakthroughs. All right, this is what I help people do. If you ask anybody who's ever worked with me, they'll tell you this. They will tell you, they'll show you. And I can even show you. You can go to, I'll give you a place you can go right now. Go to alldreallday.com. Yes, I own that domain, alldreallday.com. There you will see a bunch of feedback from people who have worked with me in the past in different capacities who will tell you about the breakthroughs that they've gotten. And a lot of those breakthroughs are not based on me being necessarily a genius who has all the answers, because Google has more answers than any human being has. It's about asking the right questions. See, Google can't tell you what question to ask. These chat GPT, these AI bots, they can't tell you what question to ask. They give you the information on anything you do ask, but if you don't know what to ask, it doesn't matter what answer they give you. You get it? See, this is the thing that can't be replicated. This is the thing that AI can't do. This is why coaching matters. All right, this is why getting around the right people, having the right mentors, being in the right mastermind groups, this is why this stuff matters. All right, this is why I tell you about workonyourgameuniversity.com in every episode of this show, because you can't get this through Google, because you won't know what to tell Google. All right, this is the most important part, folks. Anyway, creating a ton of content to get established. You need to know who your audience is, because if you know who your audience is, then you know what you need to do to get their attention. And listen, what if your audience is not on the internet? What if they're not browsing through Facebook? What if they don't have an Instagram account? What if they don't listen to podcasts? Then what do? Well, you got to find out where they're at. They're somewhere, but they may not be where you need to be on the internet. You might not need to create content for them. You might need to do something different to get their attention that's just not content. Maybe you need to create a commercial on TV because they watch TV. Maybe you need to send them a physical package because they do read their mail, but they don't get on Facebook. What about that? Maybe that's where your audience is at. It depends. You need to know who your audience is. This is your job. This is the work that you need to do. And if you don't want to do this work, this is why you hire coaches who can help you figure it out. If you can't figure it out on your own, this is why you hire people who can help you, again, buy time to cut down your learning curve. So instead of you taking a year to figure it out, the right person asking the right questions can help you figure this out in a month. Is it buying 11 months of your time worth X number of dollars that you had to invest in yourself? This is the equation that you need to, this is the equations that you need to be looking at, folks. So your audience, the people you want to serve, where are they looking? What do they want? What are their biggest challenges? What are the problems that you can solve for them? You should know the answers to these questions. If you don't know the answers to these questions, that's okay. It doesn't mean that you've done anything wrong. It just means you need to go get some help. And you need to get help like today. Why? Because time's ticking. All right, what are you waiting for? The Easter Bunny? All right. So sometimes you can serve your audience by creating content. Sometimes. All right, there are people in my audience. I know that one of the main places, I'll give you an open secret, one of the main places that people who come into my university specifically find me is through this show right here. I've said on this show before, on this very feed, I've said this, that if I had to drop all the places where I publish content and I can only keep one, I would keep this one right here and I would get rid of everything else. Now, some of you are watching this on video. I don't mean YouTube. I mean the audio version of the Work on Your Game masterclass / podcast. Just the audio version, not the video. I would dead the video. I would just do the audio version of this show and just be on the podcast feeds, and that's it. So just have my show on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Overcast, all of that, and that's it. If I had to delete everything else, no more Instagram, no Twitter, no Facebook, no YouTube, no TikTok, no LinkedIn, just this, I'll be okay with just this. Why? Because the best people who I work with, my ideal clients, the people who I most want to work with and most want to serve, they find me through the audio version of this show. I know that to be true. Why? Because I know who my audience is. I've done the work to know who my audience is. If you don't know exactly who your audience is, then you don't know where to focus. I know where my focus is. Now, even though I publish material on all those other platforms that I just named, just today, as I'm recording this, and the day that you're listening to this, doesn't matter what day it is, I have published something to every one of those platforms. Let me see, I'm looking at my phone right now. So today I have published to Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, and Clubhouse. I published something on every single one of those platforms today. But if I had to pick one, I would stick just to this one, because I know who my audience is. So I know where now, why do I publish to those other platforms though? You might be asking, well, Jerry, since you say your best people are on this platform, why publish to the other ones? Well, it doesn't mean that I can't pick up a random straggler or two from those other platforms. Not calling any of you who found me on other platforms stragglers, but you get what I'm saying. Sometimes somebody does randomly find me on other platforms, and the stuff that I do with my ideal clients does not encompass everything that I offer. Now, I also have books that, look, I'll give you the book for free, just covered $9.95 shipping. All right, some of those people find me through Instagram. Some of those people find me through Twitter or Clubhouse. So I don't mind you. Some people will come in and they'll get one of these books. They'll pay $9.95 for the shipping, get the book for free, and that's as far as they will go. They're not going to go any further up the ladder. I'm okay with that, because maybe 5 years from now you're ready to go up the ladder, but you haven't gotten there yet. All right, maybe you got to do some things for yourself before you're ready to do that. So that's why I'm in other places as well. So just to help you understand. So the concept that you should just create a ton of content just because is a false idea. It depends on who you're trying to reach. Point number 9. We are talking about brand building myths that you have been sold, that you didn't understand you have been sold to you, but I am helping fix them for you right now. Number 9, your story is not important. Your personal story, who you are, where you're from, what you're about, etc., that does not matter. All right, this is false. Your story absolutely matters. All right, it matters a whole lot. Episode number 2352, I did a 3-part series, which was, what was that, about 3-4 months ago, which was titled Who I Am and How We Got Here, Part 1, Part 2, and Part 3. I told you basically my story. Now, some of you who have been listening to the show for a long time have heard my story before, but I bet many of you might have listened to me tell my story again in that 3-part series. And sometime in the future, maybe another 6 to 12 months from now, I'm going to do another series where I'm going to tell my story again. And then the year after that, I'm going to tell my story again. And then I'm going to tell my story again. I'm going to keep doing it. Why? Because your story as a brand and my story as a brand is supremely important to the brand. Your story is very, very important. Even if your brand is a company itself and not an individual person, your story matters. So if you like a particular company, like a company that let's say a company you buy clothes from, like Forever 21, or a place you get food from, like Sweet Green, or a place that you get anything that you like. There's I have a Smart Water bottle here, which is bottled water. All right, the company itself has a story. That story matters a whole lot. So whether you're an individual person or an entity, the story matters. So think of a company like Apple. Again, I brought them up earlier in this series. Their brand is based on the concept of the company, not an individual. But Apple, the company, has a story. They have an ad called 1985. If you go on YouTube and look up Apple and type in the numbers 1985, you'll see the ad that Apple put out way back when, which was establishing who they were and what they were about. And those of you who are old enough to remember, you may remember that Apple used to have a series of TV spots that they did where they were basically lampooning Bill Gates and Windows, and they were basically comparing, they were drawing this contrast between Apple, the cool, hip, young people company, and Microsoft, this old, stuck-up, stiff company with this guy in a business suit, and they're all formal, and here's Apple, we're all cool, young, and hip. Those of you might remember that commercial series that they had. You can look this up on YouTube as well. Just look up Apple versus Mac. Is it Mac? No, Apple versus, no, it wasn't Mac. It was Mac versus Windows commercials. Just look that up on YouTube. Mac versus Windows, and you can probably find a compilation where they just have all the commercials in one big YouTube video. You can just watch them all. And where you have the guy representing Apple is this young hip guy. He has on jeans and sneakers. And then you got the Apple guy, this guy who looks just like Bill Gates. He has on a business suit and he's all stiff and nervous and socially awkward. And they're basically trying to draw this comparison between what Apple is about and what Mac is about. And it worked very well. That was one of the things that helped catapult Apple in the zeitgeist to where they are to this very day. The whole point is Apple was representing their company. They weren't representing a person. They were telling a story. And that story matters a lot. And what Apple did back in the day, back in that 1985 ad, and even the more contemporary ones where they were lampooning Bill Gates and the Windows company, is they were telling their story as a company, not as an individual. Now, on the other hand, you look at somebody like myself. All right, I mention parts of my story all the time. Sometimes, as I said, I do entire episodes and series explaining to you who I am, where I'm coming from. And the reason why I tell my story so much, and the reason I tell so many stories about myself on this show, is because my story matters a lot for my brand. All right, understand that human beings connect more to narrative, stories, than we connect to information. I give you a lot of information here on this show, but what makes it stick, the parts that you remember, are the ones that usually are connected to stories. Most of the information I share on this show, you will forget, but the stories you remember. And my story, my personal story, is one of the main things that causes you to connect with who I am as a person. Now, some of the things that I say, some of the information might get your attention, but what's going to make you stick is the story. Because at some point, maybe you got the information that you wanted, but the story makes you say, all right, I like this person, so I want to hear what this person has to say, because you connect to the person. You're not connecting to the information. Information is not, you don't build an emotional connection to information. Nobody does. But we do build emotional connections to stories. You don't have an emotional connection to your phone or your computer, but you do have an emotional connection to the company that makes that phone or computer, some deeper than others, based on the story that they tell you about themselves. All right, and you need to get comfortable telling your story, and especially if you're going to build a brand, okay? Get clear on what your story is, at least the essential parts of it. I mean, you're not making it up, but the essential parts of your story. You need to get clear on what they are, and you got to be able to tell your story over and over and over again without getting tired of telling it. I've told my story thousands of times between interviews, this show right here, live conversations that I have with people, live events that I've spoken at, between videos that I make sometimes when I'm even telling other people about myself. Maybe sometimes when I'm pitching myself, I tell a little bit of my story. I've told my story thousands of times. You need to get comfortable telling your story that often. And you got to tighten it up. You got to know what your story is. Again, when I say know what it is, it means what parts of it you want to share that you want people to know about. And you may tell different pieces depending on who your audience is. So I'm talking to basketball players, I tell different parts than if I'm talking to business people, because there's different relevance for different audiences. But you're going to tell your story a whole lot. So telling your story matters a ton. Don't ever get tired of telling your story, and don't ever shy away from telling it because you think people don't want to hear it. People do want to hear it. It actually matters more than the information you have to say. All of that said, let's recap this part 3 of 3, brand building myths. Number 7, increased vanity metrics means you are making brand progress. This is a yes if all you care about is the vanity metrics and the stats. It is a no if you care about the business and actually making money. You need to know what actually creates money for your business is not the same as what creates money for social media's business. Number 8, you must create a ton of content to get established. This is not necessarily true. There are many people who do create a lot of content, people like myself, but you need to know who your ideal client is, where they are, where they are looking, and what they're looking for. When you know that, then you'll know whether or not you need to create a ton of content, and if so, when and where and what kind of content. Number 9, your story is not important. This is absolutely false. Your story is supremely important when you're building a brand. People connect to your story because that creates a deep emotional connection when they connect to the story of an entity or a person more than they are connecting to the information or the products of that person. I did a whole episode where I told you that your stuff is not the thing that matters the most in your business. That was episode number 2147, by the way. So you need to know what your story is, know what parts of it that are relevant to your audience, get really tight and clear on telling your story, and get comfortable telling it over and over again, because that's exactly what you're going to be doing. All that said, next series we're going to be getting into are business building myths. That'll be the next series coming up. So we just did a series of series. We're going to be doing a series of series here on the show. So business building myths are the next ones coming up. So you already know what's coming up in tomorrow's episode. But before we get into that in tomorrow, first of all, text me to let me know the best insight you got from this series and today's episode. My number is 305-384-6894. And go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where you can get access to being coached directly by me. You get access to all 20 of our courses inside the university, and you will get the physical bulletproof bulletin and a black book mailed to your physical doorstep every single month. That is at workonyourgameuniversity.com. Work on your game. Dre all day.